guys, this is part 2 of the Creepypasta iceberg. If you haven't seen the previous part, there'll be a link in the description below. However, if you have seen the previous part, then I suppose you can just get back onto the video. Pen Pal. Pen Pal's a rather long story, so it's going to be hard to summarize it fully. Plus, I haven't really researched this specific Creepypasta in a while. But basically, Pen Pal is the story of our protagonist who ventures to some of his old letters that back when he was a kid used to send to his pen pal. It was like a class assignment thing as well. The messages at first from the pen pal were relatively normal and harmless. However, that's when things started to get weird, thus leading into 5 other chapters of the story. But in all honesty, if you feel like you just want to give a good creepypasta a read, I do recommend it, although it is pretty long. But for the most part, it's still pretty good. Username 666. So for those that don't know, I've already covered this video in a previous upload, also known as the top 4 creepy things found on the internet. But for those that don't know, I'm just going to break this down. The story is based on a true video that can still be found on YouTube to this very day. It's more or less a pretty old one now, but the basic premise is where a guy is randomly scrolling across YouTube, and this is old YouTube from back in the day, but nevertheless, he's scrolling through, and eventually, typing in the username 666 and kept refreshing the page, something more or less disturbing happened. The YouTube homepage gradually twisted and morphed into a creepy and more disturbing version of the already existing homepage, and as you can probably tell, eventually getting a lot worse than just creepy, eventually becoming somewhat demonic. After refreshing the page a bunch of different times, it's then revealed that a new user is on the site that goes by the username 666. The person could then be seen clicking on one of his YouTube videos, resulting in a hand coming out at the end and seemingly killing off this protagonist. Meridia Mordgard Glazgolov. For those that aren't aware, I did already make a video on this topic in my top 4 creepy things found on the internet video, so if you want to go check that out, feel free to. It's a great video to watch, I think. Anyway, Meridia Mordgard Glazgolov is essentially just a creepy video that was found, and the backstory behind it is pretty creepy. Basically, the full 2-minute video is still on YouTube to this very day, and it's apparently cursed from what I know. The video was responsible for people gouging their eyes out while watching the video. Now, obviously this is fake, and it's just a really creepy video, but nevertheless, I did find it to be relatively disturbing throughout the day. And I remember watching this back as like a little kid, and it did freak me out a tiny bit. The Expressionless. The story of the Expressionless is more or less creepy, given the fact that in 1972, a woman wandered into a hospital. The woman seemingly had a blank, expressionless face, and she didn't look all too well. They quickly agreed on trying to get her out of there, possibly, and trying to help her as well, if there was any problems. However, after getting her strapped down to a chair, due to her being very fidgety, they eventually came across something pretty disturbing. Something that at one point was living had been discovered in her mouth. It could have been a small animal, probably. Regardless, after the doctors tried to help, the nurses then screamed as the thing now took a bite out of the doctor's jugular. The doctor asked what the thing was, and then this crazy, expressionless woman then said, "I am God." SuicideMouse.avi. SuicideMouse.avi is a pretty disturbing creepypasta in the sense that it involves an old short of the more or less popular character Mickey Mouse. I remember actually being quite unnerved by this as a kid, considering I saw the entire 9-minute video, and it basically consisted of Mickey just wandering through an now abandoned and desolate street, with a saddened expression on his face as he slowly walked through the street itself. The screen would then cut to black for about a minute or so, and it would then resume the episode. It started with Mickey then walking back through the now broken town with a more disturbed smile on his face. As well as this, some famous stock screaming effects can be heard inside the background. Now, as I said previously, as a kid I didn't even know these were stock sound effects, so technically this is just another reason as to why it terrified me. But nevertheless, it doesn't quite end there. It then cut to a more grotesque and smiling version of Mickey, resulting in the screams becoming slightly more muffled but still audible. Mickey then picks up his pace as he begins to run from sprinting to basically just lying down the floor, leading it to be known as the name suicidemouse.avi. Brutal Obscene Beast. This story is related to a creature who is given the name Bob for short, and in a way he's kind of similar to the Rake, as he's a being that goes back quite a long time and has showed up in different places, mainly through woods and other such places. However, I think it's best to stay on high alert for this creature. Mr. Widemouth. The story of Mr. Widemouth is one that heavily disturbs me. It started with the main protagonist of the story, who is basically just a young child and is suffering from pretty bad illness as of that moment in time. However, throughout all his time being ill, he had one friend. That friend, of course, being Mr. Widemouth, who would often tell the author to do dangerous things, such as juggle knives or jump on an invisible trampoline down a window. It was only after the author left, however, and never came back until a couple of years later as an adult, that he went down the path that at one point in time he said he would show him, and it revealed a bunch of graves. The most unsettling part, however, they weren't graves of adults, they were graves of children. Funny Mouth. Funny Mouth is the story of a couple of people that were basically chatting in some form of chat room one day, when all of a sudden a new person had joined, called Funny Mouth. The conversation started off pretty creepy, with him saying that he knew where some of the people were and that they looked to be really nice people. After a while of this, one of our protagonists begins to slowly go insane and dement over time, his jaw even lowering significantly, and also contorting and wrapping around his body. The story then ends with his friend saying the exact same thing, knowing where he is. Mario. Even if you don't know what creepypastas are, you most likely know what Mario is, right? It's a game that everyone, I'm pretty sure, is familiar with, and I'm pretty sure everyone's played at least once in their time. However, this story is something different to what you may think. The game starts as it would any other Mario game, relatively normal until you realize that instead of saying Bowser's at it again, Mario takes the place. After knowing that he is the enemy, the author began to make some parallels with this story and from the actual game. This was a ROM hack, after all. Things, although quite relatively different, were still relatively normal, to be honest. It was only after he got to a certain stage and blowing up the castle that he realized something was off. A description was given about victim number 1 and how their eyeballs had been completely ripped out of their sockets. Also, The author then went to the game files after completing the game and realized a persistent text that was copy and pasted over in some of the files. Find me. He also discovered that although it was just a bunch of random text in the text file itself, it could be converted into an image. So he did that. And the image that eventually was converted into was really horrific, to say the least. Here's the image right now, if you're interested. Abandoned by Disne. Abandoned by Disne was perhaps one of the first creepypastas I actually read and heard about. The whole premise behind it is that an explorer one day visits one of the old abandoned resorts, also known as Treasure Island. It's only after getting there, however, that he realizes straight away that some things had just been completely and utterly forgot about, such as some rooms with barely anything in, maybe a couple of abandoned things, but that was all. However, in one of the rooms, he eventually came across a photo-negative Mickey Mouse staring at him, and the last thing he said before he bolted out there was, "Do you want to see my head come off?" The Dollmaker. The Dollmaker is a kind of screwed up story, to say the least, in the sense that it all involves a bunch of serious topics, which I don't really want to go over, so I'm just going to skip those ones. But regardless, basically it all kind of starts out when a person that makes dolls was unfortunately killed one day in a fire, and then the son of the dollmaker then basically gets abducted and a bunch of really bad stuff happens. He then goes insane and then kills the captor and then just runs away. Rap Rat. I don't want to ruin much of the story considering this is a really good one, but Rap Rat basically comes from a board game of sorts that back in the day the author used to play. Originally, their brother wanted to play a game called Nightmare, but because that game was too scary, they decided to pass, and their mother got them a different game called Rap Rat. It consisted of a videotape as well, with Rap Rat singing all the rules to the game and what to do and what not to do. The author remembers it being significantly scarier, however, due to Rap Rat being very controlling at times, saying to repeatedly to wait your turn and not to talk back. As well as this, in the end, it's revealed that there's a big plot twist regarding some form of a curse. If you say the name Rap Rat backwards, it translates to a parrot, allegedly saying this is what brings the curse onto anyone. Also, for anyone that likes this, I might do the story in a future video, but as of now, this is what the story is at a base level. The Rugrats Theory. The Rugrats Theory is one I kinda hold closely to me to this very day, as I remember seeing this a lot back as a kid. It was a great show, except knowing this theory just, it doesn't make the show the same for me anymore. Anyway, the theory goes as follows. Angelica, one of the main antagonists of the series, and also one of the baby's cousins, also known as Tommy's cousin, is often seen to be very mean to the main characters, which are, the babies in the show. However, there is a theory that states that they're all figments of Angelica's imagination, and as I said, just thinking about it gives me the chills. I don't like it. Chatroom 98. Same as before, I don't want to ruin the plot of this story, considering the fact it has a pretty good plot point and twist at the end, but basically, in a simpler format, the story goes where the protagonist of the story actually goes up to his attic and finds his old computer. He boots it up and realizes that a chat room is open. Not really recognizing it, he decides to chat around and see if he can actually talk to anyone. He talks to a random person, and then eventually, after a while, he says to look behind him. As a joke, he does, only to see nothing there. He turns back, and a horrific, smiling face is staring at him from the screen. Lost episodes. This isn't referring to an actual creepypasta, it's more or less just referring to the idea of lost episode creepypastas. I mean, I have to say, it is a pretty big subgenre of creepypastas, and I'm pretty sure you can recognize a couple right off the bat. Happy Happy. Happy Happy is more or less one of those other lost episode creepypastas. I don't want to ruin this one either because of the great plot it has, but basically, it's a show about a apple that eventually gets misunderstood after helping so many other people and getting mistreated, that he wants to sort of take over and become his own man, eventually turning into a more grotesque version of himself and abandoning those that didn't want to help him. God's Mouth. God's Mouth is an expedition creepypasta centered on a bunch of cavers that obviously came across this legendary cave known as God's Mouth, ventured into it, and allegedly got stuck in the cave. And rumor has it that it lures its victims in the moment you set foot in the cave. Koge Kao. Okay, so this story basically originated in Japanese origin, I think. So I don't know if I can read this. Unless it's a translation. Yeah. I'm gonna have to do more research into this, I think. But as of now, I don't know. I have no idea. Where Bad Kids Go. Where Bad Kids Go is a creepypasta that I remember hearing a lot about back in the day, but never actually reading. Basically the whole premise of the story, because I don't want to ruin it considering I might actually read it, but the whole premise of the story is where the author, back in the day, watched a TV show simply titled Where the Bad Kids Go. The show will repeat the same things being said, such as bad kids stay up late, or bad kids steal food from the fridge at night. It was only when the author ventured to the place a couple of years later that he found an old iron door which the camera would zoom out from after the episode. When he ventured into the place, and in the center of the room was a microphone hanging upside down, the remains of skeletons. The only thing is that the skeletons were small, almost as if they belonged to a small child. The Wanderer. The Wanderer is a story of an image that was found, and supposedly looking at it can make you commit suicide. I don't want to ruin the whole story, as I said, because at one point I'm gonna read all of these, so yeah, but basically the premise is that this strange picture can be responsible for killing you somehow. The Harbinger Experiment. This creepypasta is mainly just highlighting the fact that humanity's curiosity may be the downfall of it. The experiment, or the goal of this strange thing, was simply to know more about what truly is after the unknown. The problem was, however, they went to extreme lengths to do it, thus resulting in a bunch of creepy coincidences, and that's the main reason why no one should research what happens after the unknown. On the Bus. On the Bus is one of those old classic tales that you probably get once heard of, like a scary story or something. It's more or less a bit of an urban legend creepypasta. The general consensus of the creepypasta, however, is that basically, if you live in any rural area, a phantom bus, or what it's known as, will appear, and once you get on board, it will take you to an unsettling destination and presumably kill you. If you want a more detailed explanation to the story, I will read it at one point when I do an actual video dedicated to it, but that's just the general consensus of the story. I Hate You. I Hate You is a Mario ROM hack creepypasta. It deals with the same topics as someone just getting a different game, and a bunch of creepy stuff happens throughout it. The first thing is, you are instantly put into one of the Bowser levels, or so it seems at first. You then go through the level, and eventually, you get to a different part of it, simply titled Oh God No. You then make your way through what appears to be a small tunnel system, and after doing so, Mario is then greeted to another variation of the level. It then turns into a water stage, and your main goal is to just swim through the now bloody chumps, which assumably have killed a bunch of other people, judging from the blood on the actual floor. Regardless of that, after making it through the place, we're then greeted with a disgusting sight, to say the least. A bunch of dead Marios are seen on the spikes above. From what I know as well, they actually go and attack Mario at one point. However, once that significant bit has happened, a cutscene then happens of Mario then being in a different place. It seemed to be one of the final boss rooms where you'd actually fight Bowser, except instead of fighting Bowser, this time the main boss was Luigi. Luigi then says that you think Koopa worked alone, and proceeds to basically attack Mario. After doing so, Mario, rightfully so, is angry and tries to defeat Luigi and knocks him into the lava. Trying to desperately apologize, Mario then collapses to the floor and cries. Eventually at the finale, we are then greeted with this image. Hey everyone, quick message from Liveups Finest here. Thanks for watching and thanks for getting to the end of the video, greatly appreciated. And yeah, I just want to say overall, I hope you've had a good day. This video took a while to make, again, due to the fact that I had to research all the stuff. So, my apologies for it being a bit of a long wait. But yeah, it's out now, and part 3 will also be out soon, so you might want to look forward to that. Also, one more thing, I've got a couple Halloween videos planned as well. So yeah, and as I said, thank you so much for watching. Also, just one more thing, I'm currently in the works of launching my own Discord server as well. Mainly so you guys have a direct way to contact me, if anything else. So yeah, another thing to look forward to. But yeah, thanks for watching everyone. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.